We are anonymous. We are not a party. We are not a campaign. We are not here to ask permission from power. We exist for one reason: when the most connected people in the world rely on silence to survive, someone has to speak in plain language with the receipts and with the courage to ask the question they do not want asked. Breaking the top reporter who helped blow open the Epstein story says, she just made a discovery that should alarm every American who still believes a free press is supposed to be free. Her name is Julie K. Brown. She is the Miami Herald investigative reporter whose 2018 work reignited public attention on Jeffrey Epstein's crimes, built on interviews with dozens of women, and helped push the case back into motion. That reporting is widely credited with helping reopen the federal scrutiny that later led to major arrests, and it earned her top journalism recognition for justice reporting. Now here's the bombshell. Brown posted that her American Airlines booking information and her flight itinerary from July 2019 showed up inside the Epstein files as part of material attached to a grand jury subpoena. She noted that the itinerary includes her maiden name, and she says she did book the flight. And then she asked the obvious question out loud. Why would the Department of Justice be monitoring her travel? Let that land. A reporter investigating a powerful sex trafficking network looks into the government's Epstein file dump and finds her own personal travel details. And the timing matters. Brown's itinerary is dated July 6, 2019, during Donald Trump's first administration. That same day, Epstein was arrested by federal agents and later charged in the Southern District of New York. And in that same window, Trump's labor secretary was Alexander Acosta, the former U.S. attorney, who had overseen the infamous non-prosecution deal in Florida that let Epstein avoid serious federal charges years earlier. Acosta resigned in July 2019. Weeks later, on August 10, 2019, Epstein was found dead in a New York jail cell. So yes, it might be a coincidence, but it is also the kind of coincidence that would get laughed out of a writer's room for being too on the nose. Because the questions are brutal and they are basic. Why would Trump's DOJ have a reporter's flight booking information sitting inside Epstein file material attached to a grand jury subpoena? Were they tracking Julie K. Brown before Epstein's arrest, after his arrest, or both? And what did Trump's DOJ think they needed to know badly enough that a journalist's air travel ended up in this ecosystem? Here is what makes it even more disturbing. It is not normal for DOJ to track reporters. It is especially not normal for DOJ to scoop up personal air travel bookings for the reporter, whose work is putting the heat on one of the most politically radioactive criminal stories in modern American life. Now, to be fair, there is already an explanation circulating from inside DOJ about why those flight records might exist. A DOJ official said DOJ had subpoenaed flight records of victims as part of the Epstein and Maxwell investigations, and that the FBI was trying to identify victim flights not on Epstein's plane. In this telling, Brown's flight record was included because she booked a flight on behalf of a victim, and the subpoena return captured it. But even if you accept that explanation, it does not erase the outrage. It does not erase the chilling effect, and it does not erase the fact that the government owes the public a transparent, documented answer, because trust us does not work anymore, especially not here. And now we have elected officials demanding answers. House oversight. Democrats publicly stated the Justice Department needs to explain why travel information and booking itineraries for a journalist are in the Epstein files. Congressman Ro Khanna, who co-sponsored the Epstein Files Transparency Act, also backed Brown, saying DOJ must answer for this. So no, this is not just internet noise. This has reached the people who can force hearings, demand testimony, and put names under oath if they have the power to do it. And power is the theme here. Always has been. Because the Trump and Epstein orbit has never been just background. It keeps colliding with key moments. Trump has repeatedly tried to thread a needle, distance himself publicly, minimize the association, and then act like transparency is optional when the spotlight swings his way. And remember the survivor accounts that have long raised questions about how recruitment and trafficking worked. Virginia Giuffre has said she was recruited while working at Mar-a-Lago, and Trump himself has publicly said Epstein stole Giuffre and other young women from the Mar-a-Lago spa. Then there are the documents and messages that show Epstein posturing about Trump. In newly surfaced communications reported in 2025, Epstein replied to a message about people trying to take down Trump by writing, "I am the one able to take him down," while multiple outlets note the context of that exchange is unclear. Now, add the public record of Trump's own words when he was asked about Ghislaine Maxwell after her arrest. Asked whether she might turn in powerful men, Trump said he had not been following closely and then said, "I just wish her well," adding that he had met her numerous times. Think about how abnormal that is. The country is talking about alleged trafficking of minors, and the President of the United States chooses sympathy for Maxwell. Sympathy that instantly sparked backlash because wish her well is not what accountability sounds like. Then there is the Epstein files transparency mess, another place where Trump's behavior keeps raising the same question. Why does he act like sunlight is dangerous? In a 2024 interview, Trump said he would declassify the Epstein files and then immediately hedged warning about phony stuff that could affect people's lives. That hedge matters because it foreshadows what came next after Trump returned to office. The government starts promising transparency, then walking it back, then drip-feeding releases, then blaming the calendar, then blaming the volume. Attorney General Pam Bondi publicly promoted the idea that an Epstein client list was on her desk early in 2025. Then later that year, the DOJ acknowledged there is no evidence such a client list exists. Kash Patel became FBI director in February 2025. And yes, Dan Bongino, who had built a public persona around conspiracies and exposing elites, served as FBI deputy director and then announced he would resign. Meanwhile, Congress passed the Epstein Files Transparency Act, signed November 19, 2025, requiring release of unclassified Epstein-related DOJ records with limited exceptions and victim protective redactions on a tight timeline. The DOJ missed the December 19th deadline, then said it might need a few more weeks, citing the discovery of over 1 million additional potentially relevant documents. And here is the part that should terrify anyone who cares about truth. The releases have included material that was later flagged as fake or unfounded, like a forged Epstein letter referencing Trump, and even a fake video mistakenly published in the dump before being pulled. That means the public is being asked to sort through a landfill of redactions, rumors, and polluted evidence while the government insists it is doing transparency. That is not transparency. That is chaos management. Now listen to Trump's posture when the heat rises. Trump railed against the Epstein files as a Democrat-inspired hoax, demanded the names of Democrats, and even floated whether DOJ should stop releasing files altogether, despite the law he signed. That is not leadership. That is a man trying to steer the spotlight away from himself by turning disclosure into a partisan weapon. Release what hurts the other side, suppress what hurts mine, and call the rest fake. And while all this is happening, we are staring at a separate concrete scandal. The Julie K. Brown travel itinerary inside the Epstein file material. Because if the government can shrug off a journalist's privacy in a case this sensitive, what message does that send to the next reporter? Dig into the wrong billionaire, the wrong prosecutor, the wrong politically protected circle, and suddenly your life is in their paperwork. That is why this story is not just about Epstein. It is about whether the machinery of the state can be twisted to intimidate scrutiny. It is about whether a president who benefits from darkness can turn the DOJ into a flashlight pointed at journalists instead of predators. And it is about what happens next. Democrats on oversight have argued they do not currently have subpoena power without a majority, and they have signaled that if they win, they intend to haul in key officials, demand documents, and get aggressive naming Bondi Patel, the institutions handling the files, and others connected to the process because the public deserves real answers. And survivors deserve justice. So here is the closing truth, and it is simple. Julie K. Brown just found something that should never be normal. The DOJ cannot wave it away with a vague shrug. The Trump administration cannot bury it under redactions and partisan screaming. And the public cannot treat it like entertainment while survivors and journalists get put in the crosshairs. If you want action, do not wait for a savior. Create pressure. Call your representatives. Demand hearings. Demand a written explanation for why a journalist's booking itinerary, complete with her maiden name, ended up in Epstein grand jury subpoena material. Demand that victims' identities are protected while watchdogs, reporters, and investigators are not targeted. And keep your eyes on the people trying to turn transparency into a weapon. Because the moment you look away is the moment they count on. We are anonymous, and we are watching what they do next.